Hello, you're welcome to News Magazine with me, Irbad Ibrahim, and my partner, Abina Safo. Abina, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you too?
Accra is quite wet because it's been a rainy day. I think it started around midnight. At what time did you realize it was raining?
That was around 4 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, my eyes opened a little after 3 a.m. and I saw it was actually raining cats and dogs. But the challenge we have in Accra, of course, is that people become scared when it rains torrentially because of the flooding situation. Wherever you are this morning, whether you're moving to your office or going for a family meeting, we hope you are not stuck anywhere on the road. We have a packed show for you today as usual. We are going to discuss policies that undergird preschool management in the Republic of Ghana. And we have a child psychologist and an activist and also a counselor to help us digest some of those policy and decisions we've made as a country. So do stick and stay with us. When we come back, Abina takes us through the trending stories. Then we delve into the interview section. Okay, stick and stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Come back. You are still tuned into News Magazine with me and Abina Safo. Abina, what do you have for us by way of trending news?
Well, it's a great day today. I really enjoy the weather, and I'll proceed to City FM. City FM says, revert some schools back to Singapore. Revert some schools back to single track. Group urges Education Minister. Do we really need someone to urge us to do what is right and what is wrong?
You know, we are building a nation as a collective. Okay. So therefore, when governments make policy decisions, civil society organizations, academia, and the larger population would have every right to make propositions for amendments, so to speak. So therefore, with the free SHS policy, it's a welcome piece of news that there is general consensus that it's a step in the right direction. But as we proceed, the policies would evolve. And now that the kids have to be going to school, the young Ghanaians have to be going to school while others are away, there is a double track system. They are saying, no, there should be only a single track. But the challenge is, would we have the wherewithal and the financial muscle to keep these hundreds of thousands of students going to school at the same time? So those concerns are germane, they are legitimate, but as a state, we are facing challenges because of the lack of funding. So therefore, I believe that we can only make do with what we can afford in the meantime, even though I don't undermine the idea that it's a good proposition that is coming from civil society.
Well, do you think planning, we take planning, I mean, we plan before putting up certain structures or certain initiatives that that needs to help the country. Do you think this is really done before?
Every nation plans. The United States is seen as the most successful country in the world. It plans, but there are times it becomes overwhelmed. That is why I think the barrage of attacks targeted at government, for me, it's not in good faith. You don't have to get everything set before you can start something. A journey of 1,000 miles certainly would have to begin with a step.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay. We go to the next one. 47 rural banks yet to meet capital requirements.
You see, the strain in the banking sector or the financial sector generally is throwing a lot of apprehension into the air. People very soon would be keeping their monies at home because people can't access funds. So therefore, BOG and SEC are trying to clean up the financial sector so that Ghanaian depositors will have confidence in the various financial institutions we have. So we need to strengthen the financial regime. And therefore, if you don't yes, by setting up, good standards, high standards that can be met by everybody. And your level of liquidity as a financial institution at every point in time is very important. So therefore, you can't cobble together funding from here and there and call yourself a rural bank. Commercial fully-fledged banks are to meet the 400 million Ghana cedi threshold requirement by the close of this year. Even though I have concerns about the way BOG went about merging banks, it could have been done in a more diplomatic way. But I believe strengthening the financial regime will build enough confidence in the system.
The third one is from City News as well. Lack of personnel hampering our work. This is from Mineral Commission.
The Minerals Commission has the mandate to regulate how we use our minerals, precious stones, precious resources,
gold,
and all, including
and
gold. And in the age, Abena, of fighting against galamsey, you need enough personnel. The IGP in the past week announced that some 220 new guards have been trained, and then they've been asked to be, they are going to be dispatched to small-scale mining communities across the country. We need drones to surveil the activities of miners and all that. So therefore, if the Minerals Commission is complaining about being understaffed and not resourced enough, for me, it's a cause for concern, because to whom much is given, much is expected. But if you give them paltry, tools to work with, certainly the output is going to be as low as you put in the needed resources for them to work.
But do you really think we need, we lack personnel?
Yeah, we do. Maybe personnel, not in terms of only numbers,
Okay.
When you blast a whistle and say every unemployed graduate who studied one form of a course in the university or another can come join the Minerals Commission, you'll get tens of thousands of people in an hour or so. But then we are talking about skilled personnel. That is the underlying factor. Not just anybody, but people with the needed requisite expertise to be able to work in that industry. That, for me, is a genuine challenge they have. And therefore, I believe we should give enough attention to that.
Definitely. Okay, I'll take you to the fifth one says, no agreement with U.S. over 7,000 deportation plan, Foreign Minister.
You see, Ghanaians have been traveling to the U.S. for many decades. Maybe centuries ago, our forefathers were taken there by
for
force.
greener pastures.
No, in those times, they were padded in ships like sardine. And that was unfortunate. That was gross disrespect for human rights, those days of slavery and colonialism. But today, we willingly travel to the white man's. I remember on social media sometime last year when the Queen of Denmark visited Ghana, and she came with the intention of apologizing to Africans that their forebears had taken our forebears as slaves. You know what the young people said on social media? That, Madam Queen, don't come, crying over spilt milk. What is bygone should be bygone. Just get us another ship and see how many young people will troop in there to go to Denmark. So that tells you the sheer level of mismanagement this continent has suffered as a result of bad leadership. So even today, people are willing to throw away, jettison their master's degree. And people say there are no jobs in Ghana, they don't have capital to start work, but people will pay a fortune for a visa to travel to the white man's land. So there are thousands of Ghanaians in the US that are undocumented. They got a visa to stay there for a week. They've been there for 30 years now. They got a visa to stay there for a month. They are there for 50 years now.
Modified slavery.
So therefore, we are willingly going there to be used. Of course, in a transnational system we have, where there is intercontinental dependency, Africa needs to do business. We can provide labor. We can export labor. But not when we are exploited. And again, you should travel on visa terms that are made requisite by the United States. So some are blaming Ghana for not doing enough. And I remember when the foreign minister spoke on this issue, just when she started her work, she was lampooned by people living abroad, Ghanaians in the diaspora. They were talking about remittances they've been sending. Send remittances, they are good and healthy for our economy, but respect the laws of the country where you have traveled to. So for those 7,000 who are undocumented and they are illegal, I don't think Ghanaians should be shouting over rooftops that they are deported. The only concern I have, Abena, is that the first two tranches of deportations we saw were contrary to the ideals the U.S. stands for. How can you handcuff people while they are aboard a plane? So therefore, that is the only concern. But for any Ghanaian that is overstaying their welcome in the U.S., of course, the U.S. has every right to repatriate them.
I think we need to throw our weight on the youth and then give them the best we can, so they can also establish themselves in our country, rather than moving from our country, because they're the people who are supposed to develop our country. So, I mean, if we're we're leaving this country to go in search for greener pastures, do you think that is the ideal? Then I can't really see the future of this country.
That is a genuine concern. We call it brain drain. But I keep asking, we mentioned that the medical facilities we have are now state of the art. But the question is, do policymakers access health in those facilities they talk about? When the president or the vice president in Africa or ministers in any African country, when they are taken ill, they go to first-class hospitals in other countries. So therefore, you talk about free education at the high school level. When the sons and daughters of ministers are going to schools that use British and US curricula, so therefore, not until proponents of such policies invest in them and patronize them, then the youth will always have an erroneous opinion that going to the white man's land will ultimately provide you what you want. So therefore, I'm quite concerned. People think you are here in Ghana trying to develop your country. People don't even understand why you travel abroad and come back. Oh, why didn't you stay? That is the mantra. That is the cliche. And I believe, just as you've said, Abena, to build Ghana and build Africa, we need the strength and exuberance of the youth. And if the right conducive enabling environment is created, you are just out of uni, you get your first job, you get well paid, nobody will have the appetite to travel where they will be molested or exploited.
That's really sad. Anyway, the next one, this is from my Joy Online. 14 teacher trainees in police custody over licensure exam leakage. Why is this leakage, examination leakage? Even teachers who are meant to be our role models, they cheat how is this exam leakage comes about? Are there not people controlling this exam? How does that come out? How does the exam papers come out for people to have exam leakage or whatever they call it?
Abena, I think this goes to the very heart of the integrity of the educational process we have in Ghana. In Ghana, people come out and declare that meet such standards before you can attend the school. But you can pay your way through. There are schools that are seen as A-class schools. The only thing they do is that they buy the papers for the kids to write the exams.
Do you think that's really helping?
So it's a human institution, and in the age of social media, that is why I would save them some slack. In the age of social media, it becomes very difficult to stop some of these things, because the guy who picks the questions, the volumes of papers he has to put somewhere, has a smartphone. So all he does is to snap a picture and share on a WhatsApp platform. And so therefore, we are constrained because we don't have a social media policy to be able to regulate some of these things to avoid the leakage we see in the educational sector. That was why a good number of papers that were written some 2 or 3 years ago by WASSCE students were all scrapped. And national security had to take charge of the papers, the examination question papers. So therefore, I believe the Ghana Education Service can also evolve with the moving times so that they make the process watertight and airtight, so that we don't have such reported cases of leakage that only mar the reputation of the processes we have within the educational sector.
Well, I think the examination board must sit up, because this is really getting way out of hand. Okay, this is from BBC. Limousine crash leaves 23rd in New York City.
I am sorry to the families, both the family of the bride and the family of the groom. I think Ghana had its own version of such a very sad eventuality about a fortnight ago, when a young man who was getting married died on the day of the wedding here in Accra. Yes, so we commiserate with the families of those that are deceased. When you go to the US, people live lives of luxury. So therefore, there are such processions during weddings. This is this can only be blamed on nature, and therefore there's very little man can do. So yeah.
Okay, that's it for our trending news for today. I'll take a leave of Irbad, and then I'll be back with comments from our audience. Irbad, I know you and the guests has got a lot to discuss on
And
preschool,
there is a lot.
and so I'll take a leave of you now.
Thank you,
I'll be
Abina.
back with
Today's
comments.
topic is also very important. And throughout the program, if you have views on the trending news items that have been read out by Abina, and also the substantive interview we'll have after this break, keep your comments coming on all our social media outlets. And our WhatsApp number is boldly inscribed on your screens. Share your opinions, ask questions, and those questions will be answered. Stick and stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Come back. You are still tuned into News Magazine with me, Irbad Ibrahim, and my colleague Abna Safo. And keep your WhatsApp messages coming. And the number to send your WhatsApp messages to is boldly inscribed on your screens. And today we have in the studios a very important guest, a women and child rights activist, Reverend Aku Honam Kevi. Aku, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Women are very important, and also children. Before we delve into the topic of preschool, what is the condition of women in terms of gender issues? Where do we stand in the Republic of Ghana currently? Do we respect women some more? Do we treat children better? Is DOFSU doing so well to tackle some of those domestic issues?
Yes, I would say that Ghana is far better than it used to be, especially when it comes to gender-related issues. When you look at the African society, we are quite patriarchal, meaning that our system of socialization give more respect to men and give more rights and give land, all sorts of things that are cultural and social. You realize that men tend to benefit better. But I believe that with advocacy that had happened in Ghana for a while, I believe that when issues happen to women, for me, the recent issue about the woman who was beaten at the bank, you see the public uproar, and then at the end of the day, look at what this woman benefited from. A lot of people made some jokes around it, that you meet your policeman and all that. Yes, but for me, I feel that things have improved, but it can be better. Because when you look at issues of rape, if you look at issues of husbands beating their wives and killing them, you know, there are still issues out there. And then you look at children being raped, some of them even being raped by their own fathers and siblings. So I believe that Ghana has come far with the issues. People are becoming more aware of issues about gender. Sometimes when we talk about issues of gender, people only think about women. But I think that we are talking about issues of vulnerability. Who is vulnerable? And then when you look at a lot of cases, because of issues of power, women are more vulnerable. Why would a father rape a child? It's issues of power. I'm more powerful than you. I'm stronger than you. If you meet a child who is stronger than the dad, maybe the child might not be raped. So these are issues that come up. It's vulnerability issues around power. You spoke about DOFSU. I believe that our public institutions still need a lot of support. DOFSU is doing a lot, but they still need support. I work somehow with KAYAYES, and then when you look at the issues of sexual and gender-based violence that they go through, I work in partnership with DOFSU. DOFSU is trying, but you realize that there are certain times they do not have the tools to be able to work. So I would want a girl sleeping on the street who might be going through any form of violence to be able to call DOFSU at any time for 24-hour, 24/7 patrol or something. But do they have the facilities to be able to do that? Do they have the manpower to do that? So yes, things are improving, but I think that as a nation we can do better.
This is just going to be a scratch on the surface.
Yeah.
Maybe in future, my bosses, the producers, will bring you on this issue substantively. But I'll ask you two questions.
Yes.
And the first one is that, aren't we putting too much premium on girls and women to the detriment of men? There are men that are beaten by their wives.
Yes.
And then you keep saying, send your girl child to school.
Yes.
And now girls outnumber boys in most educational institutions. Are we being fair to the men?
You know, I think that as a nation, if we do policies that are holistic, if we do policies that look at the vulnerable at any time, we will not have a challenge of somebody going higher than the other. So if you are doing policies, because the nation is made up of men and women and boys and girls, you don't do policies that only favor women or policies that favor men. I know that because of a lot of issues about women and the fact that girls were not going to school and all that, there were a lot of quota systems and all that that were introduced. But my point is that if you put in holistic systems to ensure that at this point, who is more vulnerable, then you make sure that you absorb everybody in the system. Then we'll not have a challenge. But the challenge we have as a nation is that, okay, what is the in thing today? Girls are not going to school. Then we rush. We do for girls. Then girls are not going to school. Then we start doing for boys. We need to have systems that do not fade. We need to have systems that do not fail us so that we do not go 10 years and begin to, that's the problem we have. So then we go forward and then we begin to do policies that begin to look for boys. Boys are vulnerable, I admit. I always say that until I had a son, I didn't appreciate the issues of boys as much as I appreciate the issues of girls. But there is no doubt that girls are more vulnerable. I always use this example. Why would an armed robber walk into a house, steal the things in the house, and rape the woman? Why wouldn't you rape the man? It's because everybody feels that the woman is powerless. So it is the issue of power that we are still dealing with. Would we get to a point where women would be seen as, when we talk about issues of can a woman be a president of Ghana, it's not time. Why is it not time? Why can't a woman rise to any point in society? Even in our churches, how much respect do we give to women, even women pastors? So yes, we've come far, but there are issues, there are challenges. Okay. And I believe that if the nation begins to look at holistic policies, institutionalization of policies, we will not get to the point where we will now have to look at this and that. Yes.
This one in 30 seconds before I delve into the main show. There are two groups now. Yeah. A nation that empowers girls and women is a nation that will have holistic long-term development. Yes. But when women lose their focus, and a woman says she won't go to the kitchen, for example, she won't do laundry, and there is a new cliche in town, pepper them ministries, then aren't we losing our cultural values, which are patriarchal, and we don't agree, we want to get women and girls empowered? Aren't we going overboard with this idea of affirmative action and empowering girls and women?
You know, I recently got a new definition of feminism in my theology class, and I loved it. When we looked at feminism looking at humanity, if you are looking at ensuring that every human being is protected, if you're looking at every human being having equal rights, if you are looking at every human being having equal opportunities, then you will not worry too much about whether women are getting too much power or not. Why are you afraid of a woman getting too much power? The point is that she's a human being. A regular mother, I'm a regular mother, I'm a worker, I'm a reverend minister, I'm in school. Can you imagine how my day is? On a regular day, I do about 4 things at the same time. So if I get a little help from my husband in the kitchen, I'm not fighting for it. But if I get it, why not? So I think that's probably sometimes the way the arguments are being made make men feel instinct and feel that, hey, these women want to take over. And also because we still have patriarchal systems, the way we've been socialized. Even women are afraid to say they are feminists because I have been socialized to think that the man is better than me. If any woman comes to my house and meets my husband washing and sees me sleeping, it's a big deal. Why is it a big deal? Maybe that day that my husband decided to help me out. So I think that if we begin to think differently and begin to think of women as human beings, then there is no big deal. But we see women as the lesser beings. So for us in our discussions, we feel that if the lesser being is sleeping and the higher being is washing, then there's a problem.
Okay. We delve into preschool. That was a good one. Yeah, that was a good one. What goes into the concept of child development? Is there any literature that points to how you can give the best in terms of development for a child as you prepare the child for preschool?
I am not a child educationist, but I have read the policy on early child education. And I believe that if that policy is actually being implemented, we will have better preschool in Ghana. Because I realized that the policy was actually looking at the child from when the child is born,
Okay.
is looking at immunization,
Okay.
is looking at the role of parents, is looking at the role of CSOs, is looking at the role of all stakeholders. So we realize that if the child, and the policy looks at children from 0 to 8 years. So we realize that if we are looking at every stakeholder playing their role well. So as the mother, before the child goes to school, what are my basics? What am I expected to do? How would I ensure that the child is immunized? The birth certificate is done. The preliminary things are done before the child goes to school. If I play my role, the child will have a better life. So if a child goes to school and the child is immunized, the child is healthy and all that, you realize that a healthy child provides a very excellent child, and the child is able to maneuver in school and have an effective learning life in school.
When we were kids, immunization was done wholesale.
Yeah.
There would be a pickup truck that would come into the neighborhood
Yeah.
announcing that babies be brought out.
Yeah.
Has the regime changed now?
In rural communities, it is still being done. I know that Ghana Health Service has CHIPS compound that goes to communities and allow parents to come out with their children to do immunization. For maybe working class people, I know that you have to go to the hospital, but still it is the hospital close by. So I know that Ghana Health Service is doing their best to ensure that you get access to health care for your children.
Okay.
So for that, it is being done.
So all of that goes into the development of the brain of the child
Yes,
as the child prepares
exactly,
for preschool.
because there needs to be the basic tests. There need to be the basic immunizations so that the child can be more healthy when in school.
What about malnourished children? How do they perform when they enroll for school?
Think about yourself when you're hungry. Sometimes you grow weak, you do not function well. How much more a child? And when I looked at the policy, what I loved is that it talked about issues of poverty. And I don't see that happen. I don't know when that policy will be fully implemented, because I look at private schools, I look at public schools, I look at the whole regime, and I look at when would this holistic policy be implemented, because there are mothers who go to school, they themselves do not even have jobs. So if the child, I know that the school feeding program, I don't know whether it still exists now.
Yeah,
there have been lots of challenges. Yes, but that was also a policy for me that was supposed to
but
also...
look at the quality of food that is given.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying that there are challenges in the system. Ghana is very good with policies. We do the best policies. When you look at the Convention of the Rights of the Child, Ghana was the first signatory to this. But when it comes to the real implementation of some of these policies, we have a big challenge.
So where do we go wrong? Is it that there is ill, faith on the part of the people who should, activate the implementation, or it still remains at the policy level because of the kind of politics we have in Ghana?
For me, I think it's about politics. For me, basically, it's about politics, because when you go into, when every party comes, I don't belong to any party, so just to make it straight. But of course, I'll vote for a party, but I'm not talking politics. But when you go into any government institution, when any party comes into power, certainly certain people lose their jobs, and then their party people come into power. Now, it is like I'm a child and I feel that my father is in charge of the home. I can do anything I want because my father is around. My mom is around. If anybody bothers me, oh, mommy, they are worrying me. Oh, don't worry, don't worry. So that is the problem we have. Because of politics, the right things are not being done. So yes, we have the policies. But when it comes down, so we have a director who is implementing a particular program. Then the party changes. Then the director is changed. So yes, they are handing over notes and all that, but everything has to rewind, and then the process begins again. So we don't have continuity of certain things in the country.
Still on the level of policy in preschool, and sometime last week, one of your colleagues was here, and I was quite touched by the revelation that the Education Ministry does not have a holistic approach in dealing with preschools. Maybe you could say you are even undocumented, or they are undocumented. Don't you think the time has come for us? Because at that infantile stage, if as a nation we aren't interested in the future development of such people, in what should we be interested?
You know, I've been talking for some time now about private school education. A lot of people are taking their children to private school. When you look at the level of education we give to the children in the private schools, when you look at what happens in private schools, does government even know about it? Yes, there's certainly an association of private schools and all that, but I believe that we need to have an integrated system. We need to ensure that our policies work. I've told you that I read the policy and I was alarmed. I was like, wow, this is a good policy. But why is the policy not working? Why are we not ensuring that so far as the child is a citizen of the nation, whether the child goes to a private school or a public school, the government has, the child has a right to be protected. The child has a right for government to be interested in what is happening in that school. I've taken my children to several private schools, and sometimes it's alarming the things that happens there. And my point is, who is watching? Who is watching? Would we allow people to just have their way? So that is why I like the right-centeredness of the policy. But are we ensuring that these things are done? You know, so we have policies, we have nice things that are being documented, but after that, the paper lies there and we just clean the dust off it. What happens to implementation? So yes, you find that probably, and a lot of the issues that will be talked about is funding. There is no funding. And usually, these policies are funded by donors. Implementation is funded by donors. So no donor, no implementation.
Okay.
And that's a challenge.
So on the level of psychology, and some think a child as tender as at the age of 2 should always feel the fragrance of the mother. This is a working class mother. She has to go to work. The child spends hours on end with strangers around them. Does that affect the development and the bonding there needs to be between children and their mothers, even though they are in preschool?
It does, but the kind of economy we have, there's no way you can sit home with your child for 5 years. It's not, you need to work.
But ideally, you should be with your child for the first 5 years.
It would have been good. It would have been good. Other countries are practicing it. But how can you practice it in Ghana? If you're out of job, even for the first 3, you know, I used to do this project called Maternity Protection with the ILO. And one of the things we used to talk about is even allowing the mother to stay home for the first 6 months. Even that is wahala. If you stay home for 6 months, by the time you come, somebody would have taken your job. So how can you stay home for 2 years? So the challenge is that realistically, how do I eat? How do I feed that child? So I'm in a hurry. 3 months, people leave their children. Now when you go to crèches, we have 3 months, we have 6 months. So if you do not have any support system, you have to leave your child and go.
No, but would you let your 3-month-old child be in the care of a stranger?
I would not, but people do it.
But then what? Then there should be a solution.
Yes, so it comes back to what kind of policy we are doing. Because if as a nation, we have a policy that says that what we have now, maternity leave, is up to 3 months. So every employee, even when you go to the informal sector, you will not even get 3 months. In the informal sector, you either leave, you have to, if you are on maternity leave for more than 3 months, even the 3 months you won't get, they will replace you. I went to a school recently, and the head was telling me that, oh, somebody is on maternity leave, so replace the person. I didn't have time to ask questions. So they advertise
for vacancy,
yes,
as soon as you...
Yes. So 3 months, who takes care of my child? So people take their children to school. It's not safe. Because like I'm saying, when you go to the private schools and you see what is happening in some of the private schools, it is not safe. But what do I do?
In a traditional Ghanaian home setting, of course, you give birth, aku. It is the responsibility of the dad to make sure the family breaks bread.
Yeah.
So why would you be harping on the idea that if I don't go out and leave the child at that tender age in someone's care in preschool, how do I feed the child? Does it not go back to the idea that people are raising their kids as single parents, marriages are no longer stable?
Yeah.
Would that be a factor, and how does it affect preschool education?
Yes, I agree with you. I think that a lot of things have changed in our recent times. Women are no more the regular women that we used to see because women also work to support the home. School fees has become very expensive, no matter what you do. And there are a lot of challenges with people taking their children to public schools. So they'd rather take their children to private schools. And the private schools in certain areas are very expensive. So probably the father cannot do it alone. So the mother will have to supplement income. Now the mother works at a place that says that if you leave for 3 months, then don't come back to the job. So either you sacrifice, so there has to be a discussion in the home. And then the family has to decide. But you see, this whole issue of power relations and all that sometimes make women insecure. I've had discussions with a lot of women who will tell you that because I do not have money, my husband does not respect me. I've met lots of women. And then they'll tell you that, oh, when my income level changed, now the man respected me. So now men are even looking for girlfriends who have money. And they are looking for girlfriends who are working. So a lot of women feel insecure going saying that because if after 3 months I'll lose my job, then I have to look for another job. Even graduates, Ghana Unemployed Association is
of
there.
Unemployed Graduates.
Yes, unemployed graduates. So if graduates are unemployed, how much more somebody who might not have a degree? What is the fate of that person? So these are challenges. These are practical challenges that we have. But if government has a social welfare system, so when you look into the policy, it has issues of the various policies that government has. If all our policies were working, we have something we call LEAP that supports poor households. It supports poor households in the north. If this was an integrated system in the whole of Ghana, that said that if a woman is away for 6 months, you, the employer, pay 3 months and let the government pay the rest of the 3 months. That would have been excellent because the employer is also thinking about his pocket. If you leave that vacancy for 6 months, how would I get enough profit to be able to pay you? So the employer also needs support. So the government says, okay, we have a welfare system that says that when you go to, I think in the UK, they have about 1 year. But the employer will have to pay you. The US doesn't have, but UK has. So if we look at what kind of welfare system do we have? Does it support mothers? Does it support employees? If we have a support system for mothers, they will stay home for 1 year. When I was leaving my child for 3 months, it was difficult. But at least you come back in the afternoon. I wish I would have stayed with my children for 1 year, but I didn't have that support to be able to do that.
Okay, on this, sad note of lack of support, we'll go for a quick commercial break. When we come back, we still have Aku Honam. I thought it was Zonam. Honam Kevi, who is a women and child rights activist and counselor. Stick and stay with us. Back, you are still tuned into News Magazine with me, Irbadi Ibrahim, and my social media colleague, Abna Safo, who will join us shortly. And the essence of this program is to thoroughly diagnose some of the problems we have as a country and not stop there, not a quick fix, but have a long drawn out, solution to some of those challenges we have. We are discussing preschool. We had Anis Hafa, who took us through the basic discussion. Then we had the former director of Ghana Education Service, Nancy Yelpo, to look at some of the issues. And last week, we had the proprietaries of Elite Montessori School to look at stakeholder engagement of the management of preschool. There couldn't have been a better guest today than a child and women's rights activist and also a counselor in the person of Reverend Aku Honam Kevi, and she's doing wonderfully well. You can keep your text messages coming via our WhatsApp line 0242 817 239, 0242-817-239. And Aku, you made quite a touching, expose, so to speak, that the support system for women is not there. So for a mother who has only 3 months to be with her child, what are some of the recommendations you will make for her as a parent? So when she closes from work, maybe at 5 and gets home at 7, how does she make up for the lost contact hours with her child?
Usually in our public institutions or sometimes some private institutions, after 3 months, you don't close at 5, you close at 12. So probably you get home by 1. And for me, if you have, Ghana is excellent. We have a good family support system. So you have your mother, you have your sister who takes care of your child, which is excellent. But if you do not have people like that, another thing that was being recommended was for workplaces to have crèches. If a workplace has a crèche, then that contact hours will be redeemed by the mother. So you go and breastfeed your child, then you take your child back to the crèche. So a lot of our public institutions don't have spaces for crèches that could support the life of the mother, so that that kind of stakeholder engagement or whatever we are looking for would be done, so the mother is able to still touch base with the child. Even if you have a caregiver, you can bring the caregiver to work, so that a lot of the things do not happen at your blind side. Because as a mother, the only way you can have is to have a trusted person taking care of the child. The hard and the difficult part for a mother is to leave the job and then get another job later, which might have repercussions on the family. So for me, the mother cannot work alone. Then there are issues of paternity leave. Then we are saying that if the mother goes for 3 months, the woman should go back to work, then the man does the 3 months.
Okay.
But is that
So
something
the man
that,
will be changing diapers.
even if the man does not change the diapers, and there is somebody who is changing the diapers, there is another eye to look at whoever is changing the diapers. Because the challenge is that the mother has a way she would take care of the child than a caregiver. So these are the challenges that you would have.
We live in a country of ratios,
Yeah.
1 this, 1 that. This idea of a crèche attached to every institution, for example, National Communications Authority has a crèche. Every ministry has a crèche. Won't that be a tall order? And what would go into that if we made that policy decision as a country to implement it?
If we are a country that cares for women and cares for children, because you see, you have women in your institutions, you have women in reproductive ages, and you need the woman back. You need to make extra provisions for that woman. Because we're just talking about this whole issue of how do we ensure that all stakeholders are involved. Now, if you are getting all stakeholders involved, every stakeholder has an interest, and the mother has an interest. How would you be able to meet the mother halfway so that the mother will be comfortable to be able to take care of the child? In UNICEF, for example, I know that they have a 6-month child maternity leave policy. That is excellent.
UNICEF offices in Accra.
Yes. And you can even bring up, after 6 months, you can even bring your child to a space that has been created. For me, this is excellent. You are not looking for, how many women do you have in your institutions? So you are not looking for a big crèche. But even in the whole building, don't you have a small room that can be made child-friendly?
Okay.
Then how? Because if you do not support the mother, you do not support the child, then it also becomes a challenge for the husband.
Okay.
Because if I am a woman and I call my husband, a husband who cares for me, and I tell the husband that I'm having challenges with work because I cannot stay after 3 months, the man will be worried, because that is the baby we are talking about. So everything is interconnected. You cannot take one out and leave the other. To ensure that the child develops well, to ensure that the mother has peace of mind to be able to take care of the child, even if she's not working, and to ensure that the father is able to work well, then why not create a crèche? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. it creates the right support system we are looking at. If you are looking at early child development, don't forget that the child today is the adult in the future. So if the child does not develop well, how will that child grow to become whoever we want the child to become?
This idea of a crèche per corporate entity, it's both true and then rings well with people. And so on whose account would that be added, that added expenditure of keeping one or two facilitators in such a small room you are talking about? When you go to Accra Regional Hospital and Ridge Hospital, kids are sick and there is a playroom for the kids. So Ghana is getting there. Don't you think we can budget extra to be able to make this a policy issue across board, that for as long as you employ women, you should be able to provide that facility?
Yes, that's what I'm saying, that sometimes we don't look at the long-term benefits of certain things that we have. If you want more women working and you want more women to contribute, because after all, why are you ensuring that girls go to school? You're ensuring that girls go to school so that if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Is that it? Yeah. So you want to say that if the woman goes to school, ultimately you expect the woman to be working. And if the person wants to get married, because we are in a system where people are saying that they don't want to get married. So if women want to get married and they want to have children, no matter what you do, I'm telling you that the most frustrating part of a woman's life is when she has children and she doesn't know where to put her children. I remember I used to work somewhere and I used to take my children to work during vacations. It was just something else. And I know I was really one of the most annoying employees because the children make noise, but I have nowhere to put them. So vacation, every day I bring them to work. And these were about 2 children making a lot of noise, and you have to put them under control and still have a safe head to work. So probably there was a facility by, I'll just take them there, and then after work, I pick them up.
And even during break time, you can take breastfeeding breaks.
Yes, you know, so these are things we are talking about. Today, we might not see the benefits. We might not see the need. We might say women are asking for too much. But in the long term, if you have a woman as president and the woman is still in her reproductive age and they say do a crèche at the presidency, that is when you understand some of these critical issues we are talking about.
You say we heavily depend on donor funding.
Yes.
Will the women then be okay if a percentage of their salaries are pumped into such a facility? Can we reach that consensus?
Go beyond women and go to everybody. The man is a father. What about his salary? It's not only women who are... I'm not married. I don't have children on my own.
Certainly, we won't have another Jesus anyway.
A man impregnated me. So if you are looking at a holistic policy, look at everybody. The same way we've been able to take part of taxpayers' money to do free SHS. That is the same way we should be able to take taxpayers' money to create crèches. I think that government has money, whether from donor or from taxes or from whatever. If we are committed to it, we will do it.
Okay.
It's the commitment.
Okay, we'll soon be wrapping up the show. Some of your messages that have come will soon be read out, and the questions contained therein will be answered by our resourceful guest. But I'll ask you this in closing. These are the challenges we have, and you've expressed them quite eloquently, Aku. What are the recommendations and pieces of advice you would give? Of course, you are making a strong statement that we should all pay for an extra facility in every corporate entity. What other recommendations would you make for the sake of the development of the children while in preschool?
So for me, the first is about policy.
Great.
We need to implement our policy. Like I said, when I looked into the policy, I was excited to see that if everybody plays their role and everybody is involved, listen to the needs of the parents, listen to the needs of the government agencies, listen to the needs of the school, all stakeholders, if everybody is listened to and the policies are implemented, I think that for number one, things will be better. Now the woman needs support. The woman needs a lot of support, especially when she's working. And then topmost women in the private sector, or a woman who is in the who is doing her own job. women in the informal sector. If I'm selling tomatoes and I'm on maternity leave, who gives me maternity leave? So how would I be able, so you see a woman in the informal sector carrying the baby 1 month, selling tomatoes. If we have a social support system that supports the life of the woman, she might be able to go to maternity leave and still give money to support the child. And then we should listen to our children. I believe that sometimes if you listen to your children as they are in school, they give us a lot of indicators. They give us a lot of things that we should watch. Sometimes we say that, oh, you know, these rights issues, but the child says a lot of things when they come from school. Listen to them. Parent-child communication. The child is a stakeholder in all this. If you communicate with your child and you listen to your child, you might be able to even give good suggestions to the school that will make the schools better.
And we go for our final commercial break. When we come back, our guests will continue to be with us. And while Abena Safo reads some of your messages, those they can stay with us. We'll be back shortly. You're welcome back. You are still tuned into News Magazine. And today, I'm not a father because I'm not married yet. But Aku has given me reason to prepare before I make babies, because moving around with babies with your wife is a challenge. We welcome back Abena Safo. Abena, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Abena, what do you have for us by way of text messages?
Well, we've received excellent social media feedback. This is from our Facebook fan. Mr. Say. He says, I think there should be a national policy on language for early child development in schools. I wish we should do more in Twi language in our preschools.
And how would you tackle this, Aku? For a child born in Juje, in the Volta region, should we use Ewe? And for a child born in Kumasi, should we use Akan? And how would that impact taking English as a second and global language?
That's really a national discussion, because I think that issue has come up for a while and it didn't sound nice. People say use Chi, and then West gets angry, and they say use Ga. It needs a national discussion.
No, but where the child is, I don't speak my mother tongue, which is a shame.
Yes.
So where the child is from, can't you teach the person in that language?
I think it should we should begin from the home. Mothers should teach their children the mother tongue.
But in school, in preschool, we should maintain English as the language of instruction.
For now, it will be difficult, because which language are you teaching the child? But I know we teach local language in schools. So
Ghanaian language.
Ghanaian language. So at class 2, my son is learning local language.
Okay.
So that is excellent.
So for you wouldn't call for that radical change. We should maintain the status quo.
What are you going to, which language are you going to teach? Okay. So I think that there should be a national discussion. Probably we need another national language, so that we decide that, okay, like people decide on Afrikaans, we will say that, okay, we want Akan, we want Ewe, whatever we choose. Okay. At the end of the day, we should all be happy.
Okay, okay.
Our next comment is Kweku Asante from Bekwe. I want to know if language plays a key role in our preschool programs.
I think we can go to the next one quite briefly, because we've run out of time.
There's another comment from our Facebook fan, Baba from Kaswa. I love the show. Good job, Kantanka TV. Okay. And then the next one is saying, I am Mr. Abu from Tamale. I have a keen interest in the topic, but I think we should acknowledge the power of men in our society. That will be all for our social media segments for today. Keep watching Kantanka TV.
Thank you so much, Abena. You saw on that note, the patriarchal note. And thank you so much for making time with us today. We had in the studio Reverend Aku Zonam Kevi. She's a child and women's rights activist and a counselor. Reverend, thank you so much for making time. Till we come your way on Wednesday with another edition of News Magazine. Stay blessed and keep watching Kantanka TV. Have a good day.